Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back again, Clayton Squires from Santa Lucia's High School in Palm Beach County. And today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at this benchmark right here. And it's a pretty long one. It says analyze the significance of foreign policy events during the Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon administrations. That's a lot of administrations to look at the foreign policy events. But we're going to try to break it down so that it's in a very simplified version. You might have to read more into it, but I just kind of want to give you a gist of what they might be looking for on the EOC. So let's get straight into that. Okay, so here we go. Truman's Cold War foreign policy. You have to kind of look at what his foreign policy is and understand it. After World War II, things were very different. And it went from stopping the Nazis to stopping the spread of communism. As you can see here, all the red outlined are communist states. And there was a big push to try to stop that from ever spreading this way into Europe. And there was a couple things that happened after World War II. One of the things that was pretty important is the splitting of Germany. And there was an East and a West. In addition, Stalin cut off supplies into West Berlin. And the US responds with a Berlin airlift. And essentially, the Berlin airlift was shipping over and airdropping supplies to the Berliners in hopes that we would capture their support. Here's a big one right here, and I'm going to use a different marker on this. But the Truman Doctrine, the easiest way to remember it is Truman gave money to Greece and Turkey, or Truman eats greasy turkey. That's how I remember it. But if you have your own little thing that you can do to memorize it, that's great. But gave money to Greece and Turkey after World War II. Okay, so here's Turkey. And here's Greece. These two blue areas right here. They were trying to prevent the spread of communism. So what they do? Pretty simple. Give them money. We'll bribe them with money. So they got money. This one's very important, so make sure you remember that. Then we have NATO, the establishment of NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in 1949. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is a cooperative of countries that were going to work together and defend one another from Soviet aggression. And then lastly, we see Russia's answer to the westernized countries in Europe, and that's the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact countries are the countries that we see over here. These are all the Warsaw Pact countries. So we have Warsaw versus all the blue, which is NATO. Just draw a line around here. That's the Warsaw Pact, the red, which is communist, versus the more capitalist NATO. All right, let's see the next slide. Now we're going to talk about Eisenhower. So Eisenhower is the president right after Truman. And he has the Eisenhower Doctrine, which is very similar to the Truman Doctrine. Well, what's the difference? Well, we gave money to the Middle East. So money to the Middle East. That's how you remember it. Same principles established by Truman. And then during Eisenhower's presidency, something kind of funky happened that we weren't expecting. The launching of Sputnik, the Soviets launch, make sure you understand, the Russians or the Soviets launched the world's first satellite. And this caused the United States to invest heavily in science and math education. That's why there's such an emphasis on STEM. I'll just write this down real quick. That's why there's an emphasis on STEM in this country, because we're really trying to promote staying on top of our technological game. Also during this time, Castro overthrows the Cuban government loyal to the United States. Uh-oh. And then Cuba becomes communist. So now we have a country right off the coast of Florida that's pro-communist and sides with Russia. Eisenhower's response to this, his response, is an economic boycott and a covert training program to invade the island. All right, now we're going to get into a new president after Eisenhower. So this is Kennedy. The Bay of Pigs invasion, the same plan comes to fruition in the Bay of Pigs. Now, it was a complete blunder. What do we mean by complete blunder? It was an embarrassment to the United States because they captured all of our men and they defeated us. It didn't go as planned. We had thousands of Cuban exiles that were trained by the CIA that were going to invade Cuba, and it went terribly wrong. And then we have the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall's built and it restricts access out of East Berlin. And make sure you look at the bottom of the video because I'll put some links into some videos where you can actually see the Berlin Wall, you can see some of the Bay of Pigs to get a better understanding. Then Peace Corps comes out. Kennedy proposes a Peace Corps. This is not like a war corps where people go and they fight in the military. This is a nonviolent group that spreads American ideals through cross-cultural relationship building. So, for instance, they might help build a system for people in Africa for fresh drinking water. This is what the Peace Corps does. In addition, special forces really started to be of importance to the United States military. They needed to form elite military forces, and Kennedy was influential in seeing this through. Okay, and then lastly, let's look at this briefly. Johnson and Nixon. So LBJ, so Kennedy's assassinated, and LBJ's the vice president. He comes in, and we have another foreign policy event in Vietnam. The United States supports South Vietnam against North Vietnam. So if we look at Vietnam, it's divided in two. We take the side of the South, and then the North side, this is the communist side. Let's see if I can write this. So that's the communist side. And then under LBJ, the war would grow to massive proportions in terms of money spent, manpower, loss of life, and time. So all of these were major factors in the unpopularity of the war. And as you can see down here, I put very unpopular war, which would prevent him from seeking re-election. He wanted to get out of it, so therefore he didn't run again. Nixon comes in and does a couple things that are very important for foreign policy. He eases the tensions between China and the United States, and this is known as détente. And ping pong diplomacy, where the United States played ping pong with China and it helped improve relations. With China emerging as a great world power, this was a monumental warming, much like how we negotiated with North Korea. So we see a parallel between today